Welcome back to the very last and exciting segment of Fab Life.
Yay!
And here I am. Thank you, by the way, for gracing my show.
It's so much fun.
It is so much fun.
Best.
Yes.
This is my idea of a great time.
Yes.
I mean, you know, there aren't that many people I can hang with who love fashion as much as JC.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
There really aren't. I mean, people, you know, they'll get dressed up and they'll change their wardrobe a little bit, but I really love the people who love fashion.
Well, I love
consider it
fashion is my religion.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people who want to get a couple new outfits every season, or they want to follow their favorite designers.
Yes,
and they just love the whole evolution, and it's a personal fashion statement. Is very important. I think it's a big part of life. It
is, and now let's get the ball rolling by showing the fashion of the 90s.
90s.
Yes,
oh my gosh.
90s. Okay, now, Emilio Pucci, you know,
Prince.
Was very influential back in the 60s, and for some reason, when we hit the 90s, you know, they've had enough of the power dressing and the big shoulder pads and the
like
severe look, and now they wanted to soften it up with colors and prints and accessories.
Pucci prints, the best
so the Pucci prints,
scarves and dresses in the world.
One person who was heavily influenced by Pucci back in the 90s was none other than the fashion god Gianni Versace. And he was very influenced by him. He crossed over between Pucci and Andy Warhol. And then also, you know, he created some Renaissance thing. You know, he was also inspired by the Sun King of Versailles. So he mixed it all up together, and hence came the medallion look and the Medusa look.
Everybody had the gold jewelry, the really strong gold pieces because of that. And white,
but unfortunately,
white clothes, black clothes, very sleek.
Unfortunately, one day, Gianni Versace was shot dead back then. It was like a sad day. It just tore the whole fashion industry.
He was on the top of his game.
He was at the top of his game.
For whatever reason, some nutcase
who
had to do that.
Yeah.
And we have only great fashion though left. And that's beautiful that he did leave us.
And I'm just,
he left us with that.
Heartbroken, you know, as to why, you know, he had to, you know, shoot him, because I believe that, you know, Gianni Versace was an amazing man and he didn't deserve to die that way.
He was probably just a busy, hardworking guy. I mean, how could he have a
busy, hardworking guy with a glorious life? And
his homes.
Have
you ever seen the pictures of his homes and stuff?
Do you know the historical value of the place where he died and why he bought it?
What?
That was owned by Christopher Columbus.
Oh my gosh.
That's why he bought that place. You know, because Johnny, you know, he's from Italy, and Europeans have like a very close to culture and history and all that, and that's why he bought it.
Was it a villa?
Yeah, and Italian villa. Yes.
Right. Okay. Oh, I'd love to see that.
It was like a palace.
We should do a show with all the neat clothing designers' homes.
Yeah, and I had the Vogue issue of that.
Oh, I've saved a lot of pictures of the clothing designers' homes.
Yeah.
I have files on that.
And Allegra Versace, the daughter of Donatella back then, was still a child. You know, Allegra was still, and I believe that he left his wealth to Allegra Versace. But anyhow, it's really sad.
But Donatella took over the house.
Donatella took over the house, and unfortunately,
she made it work.
Unfortunately for Donatella, she was going through a lot of trauma and through a lot of heartbreak.
Sure.
You know, and she couldn't function really well.
It would be hard to do anything.
It would be extremely hard. But
she did.
Anyhow,
she made it through, and she did carry on the house of Versace.
Yes. Anyhow, I know we're talking about the sad part of it, but the exciting part of it is that he dressed a lot of movie stars back in the 80s, And one iconic dress back in the 80s was that outfit, that bondage dress that Elizabeth Hurley wore. It was this one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
laces.
this Versace.
Lots of kind of chains.
Yes. And as you can see,
feel to it. Beautiful.
Helena Christensen wore, and I remember an article of Vogue, and they asked Gianni back then, you know, who are you dressing for? I'm dressing for the woman who's going to the opera while listening to rock music. while she's putting on her makeup. She's
That's so great. And I think that the clothes were outrageous, but it was something to shock the eye to open it.
It was outrageous, but then
you want to shock the eye to open it, and that is what always. But
surprisingly, let me show you another side of Versace, because he also created a minimalist. The black
black jumpsuit,
the black jumpsuit and the red. Look at that! It's so minimalist. So it's almost Halston-like. Yeah, it's almost Halston-like. So there were two sides of Versace that I saw back in the day.
I just remember the most beautiful fitting clothes.
Yeah.
And beautiful tailored everything.
And people that don't know Versace only think about the medallion Medusa look, but they don't know that he was also the king of minimalism when he took all that jewelry and he did it in a very seductive way and very, siren looking. And that's what I love about Gianni. It's almost like it was like a fashion bipolar thing, I got this like minimalist and the Sun King of Versailles is over here.
The massive contradictions.
Yes.
Just like a lot of people in the fashion business.
Yes.
I think I'm a massive contradictions.
Me too. Me
too. We're like onions. There's lots of
layers peeled. And now we...
and it's winter. We're all dressed in layers.
Yes. And
it's been 28 degrees in Las Vegas. Very cold.
And one icon of the 90s is also Christian Lacroix. And I love the colorful outfits of Christian Lacroix here. Very elegant. And he too, was influenced by...
I love the color.
Yeah.
I love anything by colors.
Christian Lacroix. Back in the 90s, he became big in the mid-80s. And then when the 90s came, he became even bigger.
He was considered one of the best.
Yeah.
And outrageous fashion.
And
very, very beautiful, amazing, outrageous fashion.
And by the way,
it
also...
was so weird. Sometimes it was good because
it was good.
So weird.
It was good.
But I liked it. I always had this kind of weird love for it. I don't know why.
So now, and just to let you know that,
Alexander McQueen.
Oh. We'll do a special segment of Alexander McQueen. We should do a whole show
about Alexander McQueen.
Yeah. So now moving on to the Millennium. And the Millennium is so exciting because in the Millennium we got, hold on for a second, two of the biggest icons of the Millennium is Beyonce and Lady Gaga.
Oh,
and
yes.
They just defined this whole Millennium, and Lady Gaga with the meat dress.
Yeah, the meat dress.
And then Beyonce with her Sasha Fierce, and the return of the 80s because of Sasha Fierce. She wore the motorcycle corset dress that Thierry Mugler designed. This is the corset dress.
So fierce.
Yes.
It's so fierce in the bright colors.
And then also...
is she putting that on the screen?
Yes, she is. And of course, the meat dress.
Yeah, that's
that
amazing.
Lady Gaga wore.
Who would ever do that?
Yeah, and
who would ever do that?
And
that's something I never saw coming.
Yeah, and and she got a lot of flack for it because it was meat dress, and even Cher harshly criticized Lady Gaga for it. First of all, because Cher had to carry the meat purse. And so, and Cher was like, it was bleeding. But then, on to another conversation.
She's probably a vegetarian,
so anyhow,
right? And that was disturbing to her.
So anyhow, the Millennium saw the return of a renaissance of the 80s with the big shoulder pads. And now, we concentrate on Olivier Rousteing. And Olivier Rousteing is the designer of Balmain. And hold on. I'm going to say something very important.
Go for it.
Because Olivier, the designer of Balmain, is a good friend of the iconic people of pop culture of today. Can you guess who they are? The Kardashians. Yeah, and one of the models of Olivier roasting is Kendall Jenner. And by the way, Kendall Jenner deserves to be on the catwalk. She is, and not because of the Kardashian name, but because she's really beautiful.
She's very good
from top to bottom, and going back to the 80s of renaissance of the Millennium. Olivier Roasting collaborated with H&M and they did a Dynasty collection.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and also now in the Millennium, it was when
did that come out?
A few years ago.
Okay.
A few years ago, and then now
iconoclastic.
Yes, yes, and now one of the biggest things that happen now in the Millennium is a lot of the Met Galas. Every year the Met Gala has grown bigger and bigger.
The gowns.
Not only the gowns and the theme. It was always keeping up with the theme of the gala.
What kind of themes did they have?
They had looking through the glass.
The looking glass?
The looking glass, okay. And then this is the
oh wow.
Wait, before that we have to go to what Jennifer Lopez wore for the Heavenly Creatures and the Catholic Imagination.
That's
so
fabulous.
There's a cross. But the most iconic piece is Through the Looking Glass. It's what Rihanna wore, and a lot of people who don't know fashion blasted her for it. They said that it looked like a giant omelet. And
they said, the yellow omelet.
The yellow, yeah.
Banana slug.
But I loved it.
It's beautiful.
I loved it. One of these days I'm going to have to show you my documentary of One Monday in May, because you will see that dress over there.
Oh,
and the way Andre Leon Talley, the editor-at-large of Vogue, was crying. And he said that Rihanna is like a Cinderella story from rags to riches. And now this is her moment to shine.
Right.
So there you have it, my fabulous girls and boys, the fashion icons and the way they influence and defined a decade throughout this entire century.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
And
JC.
Don't forget, and thank you, that your greatest fashion accessory is your self-confidence. So until next week, sayonara and chowder.
Bye.
Bye.
Social media shows
is about
branding,
opportunity, and outreach.